Oh, my heart's still going like the clappers. I mean, it was only a couple of minutes ago, and I don't know, maybe there are prizes where people know in advance, but certainly no one knows in advance for this one. So, yeah, and I wasn't expecting it. So I walked up there through the crowd, sort of with a slight feeling of unreality. I think the first inspiration comes from something that happened so long ago, but when I was a child, I read a story in my grandmother's newspaper about a child who fell into a freezing cold river and was underwater for nearly an hour, and when the lifeless body was pulled out, an hour later the child opened his eyes and breathed again and came back to life. And I thought that was amazing, and years later read another account with more science about what really happens. And there is a medical phenomenon whereby in extreme temperatures underwater the human body will click into a special survival mode, and the circulation and the breathing will stop, and the person will appear dead, but they're actually technically not. And years later I started thinking, well, now we have medics who know that can be the case, but that must have been happening, rarely, but happening, time and time again in history, and people really would have thought that a dead person had come back to life. And what would happen if people really believed that a dead person had come back to life? And I think that was what triggered the thinking process. What is it that I love? Well, I do love Dickens, and he wrote the occasional historical novel. And so some of his are contemporary for the time he was writing, but others are set in previous times. So maybe it would be one of those.
Who inspired you for this?
Who inspired me? Do you know, individual people don't usually find their way into my work. I would say I'm one of the least autobiographical novelists you could find, because I don't tend to borrow much. My characters are more likely to be hybrids, to have a sort of a traceable family history in characters of other books I've read. But in this particular book I did make one exception, and there's something that my grandfather always used to say when I was a child, and that to my mind it just summed up what a loving and caring and kind person he was. And he always, when my grandmother brought the food in, he would always say, don't serve me first, give to the little ones first. I'd rather starve than see these children go without.
So sweet.
And I gave that line to Mr. Armstrong in the book, who is just he's just got such a big heart. And so I gave that line to him just as a way of it was a kind of an homage to my own grandfather. Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that it's come about because people, readers and booksellers and everybody in the business is starting to look in a new way at books that have one foot in the historical novel and one foot elsewhere. And it shows that genre boundaries are really helpful in certain circumstances. They're really helpful for academics, for booksellers. It's a helpful shorthand if you're trying to explain what kind of a book something is. But the real world of storytelling does transcend boundaries. And so the fact that someone who's very interested in the crime novel, someone who's very interested in romance, someone who's really interested, as I am, in folktale, someone who's interested in mystery and murder, all of those people are allowed to have a foot in the camp of the historical novel. And I think what that does is it makes the genre more accessible for new readers who, when they come in, discover, oh, I quite like this stuff actually. I didn't know that I would, but now I do. And then from within historical fiction, they'll continue to explore and read more. If someone's thinking of starting to writing a historical novel, I would say one of the key things is don't overdo the research in the early stages. It's so tempting to feel that you need to know everything about the era before you start. But in fact, if you can, stories are about human beings and their desires and the obstacles they face and whether or not they're going to get what they want. And if you can get the relationships and the beginnings of a plot in motion, that will point you in a much tighter direction of where you need to go for the research, and then you can just research the things you need to know, as opposed to imagining that you need to know absolutely everything about a certain field before you can start. Yes, and it will be another historical novel actually. I can't tell you much more than that, but that much I'm happy to tell you.